So there was an article on the Sydney Morning Herald over 2 weeks ago now, talking about how over 2 million people have decided to drop their health insurance in the past 5 years. It was conducted by a survey by YouGov Galaxy poll, which found that a quarter of people who previously had private health insurance no longer did. The main reasons for dropping the health insurance was the cost of premiums at 64%, while over 50% believed that it had no value for money. Now, looking at the history of private health insurance, it's been an industry which has been practically propped up by the government for over nearly 20 years now. Ever since John Howard in '99 decided to subsidize the industry by mandating a 2% surcharge on anyone over the age of 30 earning between any earning over $90,000. Um, the issue, of course, with this is the fact that after Medicare was introduced back in the Hawke era, back in the 1980s, 1983 or 4, over I think only like 30% of people had decided to keep their private health insurance. Yeah, that's right. So there was over 54% of people at the introduction of Medicare, which kept their private health insurance. Well, after the introduction of Medicare, and we actually had a pretty good public health system, over 33% of people would decide to drop it. Now, of course, after Howard decided to introduce his free market quote unquote policy back in '99, people have been forced to go into private health insurance just so they aren't burdened with the fact that once they go into their 50s or 60s, they won't have to pay for expensive premiums that'd be shot way up because they didn't sign up to private health insurance back when they were 30 years old. So saying this, one of the arguments, for Labor's policy anyway, Labor's policy back during the election was to keep premiums at 2% and make sure that they are capped and make sure they don't increase beyond that 2% premium increase. But critics at the time said basically, well, why should the government shouldn't be propping up the free market in terms of actually support the free market should stand on its own. The only issue with that criticism is the fact that private health insurance on its own has been propped up by the government ever since it was introduced. We spend like $6 billion a year on the damn thing. We may as well just abolish it, really. Because of the fact that if you were to put that $6 billion in the public health sector, it actually would boost productivity overall for public health, while also allowing people not to be forced into a health insurance scheme that they don't want any involvement with. Fact of the matter is, it doesn't make sense to prop up an industry that no one wants, while at the same time criticize policies that actually help deal with the problem of the industry at the same time. As conservatives would say, you should just use the invisible hand and just allow the invisible hand do its own thing. I mean, if it really does need government support just to survive, then what's the point of even really having the private health insurance industry in the first place? I say we just we no longer we don't abolish it, but we just no longer subsidize it. See how it goes, and let the market decide whether or not it's actually worth keeping around. People will decide on their own choices and merits and see if it's any good. Yeah, I'd say let's stop popping up an industry that needs to be on life support all the time, and maybe just allocate that money into something that's more worthwhile instead.